podcast. I'm your host, Coach Emery, aka Emery McMillan. Today, I have with me a good friend of mine on social media at the Real Boho Mofo. And today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to actually talk about a situation that she went through. As you may have seen on my social media posts, we talked about a little bit of it briefly, but she's going to really break down, kind of what happened. And her goal of letting this come out is to kind of inspire others and let others know some of what she experienced. And I'll let her talk, and then we'll kind of dialogue that way. So if you want to introduce yourself, and we'll jump right in.
Yes, most people know me as the Real Boho Mofo. More personally, people might know me as Nikki. And I am just a social media content creator. I usually post things about, relationships or just funny things, entertainment. And that's about it.
Okay. Now, what's the message that you wanted to talk about today? Or what's the situation that you wanted to kind of address today in our conversation?
Yeah. So I've always been very open and honest with my followers about pretty much anything. I've never been afraid to answer questions or tell them what's going on. And so a lot of what I went through in the past 6 months was displayed on my social media to share with my followers. And that circumstance or that situation left me in pretty bad circumstances after about 6 months. And a lot of my followers are asking for a story time. There's not really a platform where I can do a story time. So I figured, this would be a better option where I could kind of like answer those questions that I know most people have about the situation, just so there's a better understanding.
Okay. So now you said you're pretty transparent on social media and people know, a little bit about it. So tell us where the story began and kind of like what took place for you, what you experienced.
Yeah. So I guess I would have to go back probably about 1.5 years when I lost my grandma, which is the person that raised me. She was my mother, essentially. And shortly thereafter, I lost one of my uncles who I grew up with because obviously that was my grandmother's son. Additionally, I had a falling out with my own son when he turned 18, and I ended up having to put him out of my house. And then shortly thereafter, I actually my ex-boyfriend broke up with me for like the millionth time throughout all of the other situations. And so I had experienced like loss after loss after loss for the past 1.5 years. And I was at a very, very fragile emotional state at the time. And I was really in search of like something to hold on to, love, stability, just something positive, because it, even with COVID, it was like COVID hit and then we were all stuck in the house and, you couldn't see anybody. And then people started dying and people, it was a lot. And so it just left me in kind of an extremely fragile state. And I don't even think I realized at the time, this is more of a hindsight, realizing like, wow, I was in a really vulnerable state. But I'm one of those people that try to keep it together and stay strong. And so a lot of times in doing that, I'm essentially like tricking myself into thinking that I'm okay. And I think at that time, I thought I was making a sound decision, but it was more of a vulnerable decision, like not very well thought out. Not given a lot of time, and more so just a leap of faith, so to speak, and taking a chance. So
now when you talk about the situation, so it sounds like we're talking about a relationship or a love interest or something like that. Can you give us a little perspective about, what made you feel comfortable taking this leap, or, what made you feel comfortable with making this decision?
Yeah. So initially it was just a move for a change, which I think a lot of people go through. It's like, well, I just want a fresh start. I just want to get away from, everything that's been happening, and I want to get far away, and I want to be where I don't know anyone and everything just feels new and all the problems feel like they're somewhere else. And so that I can forget them or move past them or, focus on new things and new memories. So I had decided either on Georgia or Texas as a location. And then after some friends invited me for New Year's to Georgia, I just decided on Georgia. And so shortly after I got there, I did meet someone who pretty much just kind of came out of the blue with seemingly like all the answers, everything that I was looking for, the stability, the love, the commitment, the, you know, same interests, and, you know, the same level of desire for a life partner, and just everything just seemed to kind of make sense, even though it didn't make sense, because it was like, but I had never experienced what I now know to be like love bombing. I had never experienced that. So at that time, that being that first experience of ever having been love bombed, it felt great. It felt like, hey, this is cool. Like I wanted this, you know what I mean? But what can you say? Like it was my first time experiencing that. So I did not recognize it as such.
Okay. So around when did you realize this was a bad decision, or kind of how did it make you feel initially when you got here? Let's backtrack. When you first engaged in it, like you said, you were getting love bombed, and then, you know, like this was a lot, and it was just a lot of good things, you know. What made you feel that something could be off in this situation? Like, what was the first indication you had?
So during the love bombing stage, there were a lot of promises made. There were a lot of suggestions of like, you know, I can take care of you. You've been by yourself for so long. You can count on me. You don't have to work. Let me just take care of everything. I'll help you with your children. You can stay in my house, blah, 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 you know, just a lot of that. And so, again, it seemed a little too good to be true, but he was actually coming through. Like he did let me stay at his house with him. And he did initially take in my children, and was very nice and loving and, you know, family oriented and things like that. But then shortly thereafter, there started being kind of like a switch where it was like, he started complaining that I wasn't working, and he started complaining about my children, and I'm just like, well, I thought you wanted kids. Like he had initially told me he wanted kids. He didn't have kids of his own. And he wanted to date a woman with kids. So he kind of like have a family because he didn't want a baby. Like he didn't want to go through that stage. So, you know, when things started to turn around and he started complaining that I wasn't working or contributing to the bills. And I'm like, well, you literally told me like that you didn't want me to do that. And you said you wanted kids, and you said this. And it just, it was kind of like, almost like I was crazy. Like I started to feel like, am I tripping? Or like, didn't he say XYZ? And so I started having to conform to different things than what the initial offer and the initial agreement of how the situation was going to look. And it turned out to be like a whole 180. It was like everything he said ended up being the opposite of what he said. And that's when I was first kind of like, and it's not that I don't want to work or, you know, don't want to clean or anything like that. But it's like, if you're telling me this and I accept that, then that's going to be my expectation. And so I switched it up, and I started working, and I started contributing and doing all that. But it was like, he would turn around and still say, well, you're not paying any bills, you know? And I'm like, but I literally put an entire paycheck into an account that you have access to every 2 weeks, and I don't even touch that paycheck. He purposely wasn't using it to pay bills because he wanted to still be able to say, I pay all the bills, so I call all the shots. You don't have any thoughts, you don't have opinions, you don't have feelings. Like it doesn't matter what you think, or you know, nothing from your end matters because you don't pay any bills. So my money's just literally piling into this account, and I'm working to try to contribute because he was complaining. So it just turned into this thing where like nothing was ever good enough. You know, nothing was ever to his satisfaction. There was always a complaint. And the complaints went from like the bills to my kids to about me. Like, oh, well, you're out of shape, and, you know, you're not dressing up, and you're not this, and you're not. And I'm just like, are you sure you want to be together? Because you don't seem to like anything. You know what I mean? So that was probably around like the second or third month in, you know, because this all started in January. And by like March, I was kind of feeling like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is weird. Like, he seemed so overly enthusiastic initially. And now sometimes I'd be like, do you even like me? Like, do you hate me? Or like, are you even attracted to me? Like, he wasn't affectionate, just nothing. And it just was weird to me. So that's kind of what happened with that. That's when I first noticed.
Okay. Now let's put it in perspective here. So, you have your own thing going on. You have your own stuff. You have your own place. You're with your kids, and you really didn't need someone to come along and seemingly rescue you from anything. you thought that you found someone who wanted to be with you, and in the realm of looking at this relationship, this is what they offer to bring to the table for your union to work and for your union to be together. That closeness and that proximity is what they offered. So it wasn't like they were rescuing you from any situation, right?
Correct. Because, and I tried to explain that several times, because his attitude was that of someone who had rescued someone. You know, it was always like, well, you should be grateful because I'm dating you and you have kids, and you should be grateful that you live in this nice house now. And you should be, and I'm like, but I lived in a nice house before I met you. And I've always lived in nice houses. Like, you didn't rescue me up out of the ghetto or, you know, some poverty stricken life. Like, I was fine. I was paying all my bills by myself and taking care of my kids by myself. Like, I didn't have help before him. And I wasn't on the street or struggling or anything before him. And I chose to move to Georgia. You know what I mean? So, but I guess because he didn't see that part, he just made an assumption and a judgment that because I was a single mom, that I was being saved, essentially. And so that was a lot of times his attitude, like I was some charity case, and he spoke to me as such.
So, and I asked those questions because I wanted to put it in perspective that this wasn't a situation of someone who came along looking to do you a favor and, you know, or like you said, rescue you. Like, this isn't a Cinderella story. This is someone who already has a full life functioning, has been a mom for multiple years, is building her own empire and brand and all these things you had going for yourself already. As anyone who watched this will know, you know, you were on here before. We did an interview before about a year ago, and you were doing your thing. So it's not, this isn't, you know, the first time they, you know, people would see you. And most importantly, you were already having a lifestyle that you were used to. And this kind of came as, hey, let's do this together. And so, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this conversation is because there's a lot of women, particularly women, you know, all you know, people go through this possibly, but a lot of women are getting duped, so to speak, into these situations where, hey, let me take care of you, or let me be your sole provider, or let me be the one that takes care of everything for you, to kind of almost give a control over the person, you know, and the word is very big out now, like narcissism and control freaks, things like that. Do you feel like you recognize any narcissistic tendencies in this relationship?
Not only did I recognize them, he admitted multiple times to being a narcissist, and he was proud of it. He felt like that was some sort of like high level achievement of some sort, to be a narcissist. He looked at it as, you know, I'm better because I do have a narcissistic way of thinking or personality. And so it surprised me because I'd never heard of anybody being proud of being a narcissist, but he actually said it multiple times that's exactly what, you know, he admitted. And yes, there was very much the control factor. Like, every aspect of my life, I pretty much started to feel like I was losing myself completely. I couldn't do TikTok. I couldn't do pretty much anything I wanted to do because it was ridiculed. It was like, oh, you want to do that? You know, it was like anything I wanted to do was looked down upon, like it wasn't good enough because I should be doing what he thinks I should be doing, you know? And I'm like, well, I was doing all of this before. And we even had those talks. I said, I don't want to be, you know, controlled. I want to be able to still put out my content, because I've had issues with that in the past, you know, where like people get threatened. Oh, you're always on your phone. Well, I'm a content creator with, at the time, 200,000 followers. So I do have to be on my phone. It's part of my job, you know? And so, you know, we had those talks, and he's like, oh no, I'm not trying to get in the way, do your thing, blah, blah, blah. But once I got in his house and all of that, then it became, you know, well, you're always sitting on TikTok, wasting your time, and, you know, this, and that. And I'm like, wasting my time? Like, I literally get paid to do this. Like I told you, it was one of my jobs. So yeah, it was very much a issue of a lot of control. And he admitted, like, hey, I expect things to be done my way because my way always works. And that was it. Like, that was the option. That was my option as long as I was with him.
Gotcha. Now, when did that kind of behavior start? Or those kind of conversations start when you would start to recognize the narcissistic behavior, or especially when he would say things like that, like, you know, I am one, or this is the way things are because I'm this way. Like, when did those things kind of happen, and when did you start to notice those tendencies could be there?
It was around the same time as the other red flags. It was around March. You know, I got there in January and started dating him like towards the beginning of January. And then by March, it was like all of the signs were there. The narcissistic tendencies were there. And I was just kind of like, okay, like, I'm not sure what to do here. Like, I've never experienced this and this is weird. You know, I even tried like, okay, well, maybe I should try his ideas because maybe he has better ideas than me. Like, it's very brainwashing. It's very manipulative because they're so good. Narcissists are so good at convincing you to do whatever they want you to do. And so I was in that place, you know, for months before I could finally get out. But it did start around March. It was around March.
Okay. So January, you there. Around March, you start understanding and seeing these things. Once you brought them to his attention, you know, did anything change for the better, or did they kind of stay the same the whole time?
I would say they actually got progressively worse. I did try to bring certain things to his attention, but when I did, it would turn into an argument, you know, where I was at fault. Usually it was like, well, clearly, you know, you don't want to be successful in life. So, you know, just do whatever you want to do. Or, you know, there would be some sort of consequences like, oh, you want to go be on TikTok instead of doing what I say, then go ahead and be on TikTok and see where that gets you. You know, it was just like, I never actually felt comfortable. Like after a talk, it was more of a manipulation to still do whatever he said. There was never any like change, like, you know, you're right. I did say that you know, you'd be able to do this. So, you know, let me back off a little bit. I should respect what we talked about. It was never that. It was always some sort of manipulating conversation where he told me, go ahead and do what you want to do. But it was clearly like a threat. You know what I mean?
Right. So now you're in this space, you know, you've moved to Georgia, and then you're with this guy. All these promises are made, but a lot of them are not taking place, and you're contributing to the finances of the household. You're still trying to do your thing. Now, how did that affect you working as far as your content goes and the things and you know, the way you were making your money before you got with this guy? How did that impact your income?
Yeah, it impacted it quite a bit. I was getting checks from TikTok when I met him monthly. And like my check went down to, I think by the second month, by February, my check had gone down to barely like $46 for the month. Because I just wasn't able to do any content. I had to try to film a bunch of content whenever he wasn't home so that I could do it without having to feel bad about it or get ridiculed about it. So I wasn't putting up a lot of content. I used to get on live like at least 3 or 4 times a week. I hadn't gone on live in like 2 months at the time. And then when I did go on, I'd have tears in my eyes. People would be asking me what was wrong. Why was my energy the way that it was? And it just, I almost like gave up on TikTok completely, on social media completely. Just because it was almost like I felt like I was like cheating. Like I had to sneak and go do my thing. That was me. The part of me that was me, I had to sneak and go be me. I couldn't be myself. Right. So I was falling into a depression at that point. And there were times that I even felt like I'd rather just not even be alive. Like if that was going to be my life, I'd rather just not be alive. And unfortunately, I didn't have the money at the time to leave. Because in my mind, thinking logically, I'm like, I need to be able to get my stuff out of here. I need to be able to, you know, get plane tickets. I need to be able to ship my car back to California. Cause at that point, I didn't even want to move to Georgia anymore. Like I just wanted to go back to, you know, my old life. I'm like, what was I thinking moving away? Like I thought it would give me a fresh start, which it did, but the fresh start was so horrible. I wanted to go back, right. You know, so I just didn't feel like I had the wherewithal to get out of there. And so I stayed and just was kind of like in a funk and a depression. And I kind of lost my edge there.
Right. Now, so we're in June right now, right? So we go January. A lot of the signs came up about March. Play for us a little bit of what March through June looked like, and what was the final straw that made you really right now, because right now you're in California, right?
Yes.
So right now you're in California. You made a 3-day trip in 2 days.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about what intensified or magnified itself to make you really make this transition, because a lot of people who are in those situations, even though the red flags appear, they still feel they can make it better. They still feel they can make it feel good or better with time, or tolerate certain things. And they're in these relationships a lot of times for years,
Yeah.
and so yours was, less than 6 months. So give us what March through June looked like, and what really made you feel like, okay, this is enough, I'm gone.
So March through June, he pretty much, like, there was mostly the silent treatment from him. He was ignoring me. He most of the time he didn't even acknowledge me or speak to me. If he did, it was some sort of ridicule about how I looked or what I was doing. I was working 8 hours. In between working, like, if I got a break, I didn't even eat. I would, like, be trying to clean the house to a certain level, because he was an extremely, an extreme perfectionist when it came to cleaning. Like, not just, you can't just clean the house. Like, it has to be like, it has to look like a model home every single day. And so I was struggling to try to keep that up so that he wouldn't come home and complain about that. Working 8 hours, I was working from home. So I was stuck behind a desk all day, answering calls for a company. And then when I would get off work, I would go to work with him, because he wanted me to also participate in his contracting business. So there was no time for me to do anything else besides just work, clean. And then in between, obviously, tend to the children. And if I fell short on any of it, I was highly ridiculed. It was depressing. The turning point for me was one night I had a dream. And in that dream, I called my mom and I told her, Mom, let's just go die. And she was like, okay, like, let's go. And I went to her and I grabbed her hand and we went and laid down, like, as if we were going to sleep. And we essentially went to sleep. But when we woke up, we were spirits. We weren't actual people anymore. We had, in fact, died. And we got up and we were walking around, and, the earth looked the same. Everything looked the same, but we knew we were dead. And we knew that no one could see us, but only we could see each other. And the level of peace that I felt in that dream was so intense and so satisfying that when I woke up and realized I was dreaming and that I was actually still alive, I literally broke down immediately when I woke up and cried the entire rest of the day. Like, I was that depressed that I was actually still awake and still in that life. And at that point, I knew that situation wasn't for me. Like, I can't be here. Like, I am dying. Essentially, I am dying. And I'm getting to a point where I'd rather be dead than be here. And that's not a place that I can be. I have children. They need me here. So I can't be walking around and leaving myself in a situation where it makes me feel like I don't even want to be alive. Right. So at that point, I was trying to think of what I could do, how I could get back home. I was trying to still cooperate with him as much as possible so as not to cause any issues. He was very verbally and mentally, emotionally abusive. And he called it telling the truth. So he felt completely justified in constantly tearing me down and saying negative things to me because he said he was being honest. And so I finally had enough of the daily just tear down. And last week, I decided on the weekend of Father's Day to put my stuff in storage and worry about how to get it later, and to put my kids in my car and drive back to California and get out of there. And that's what I did.
So I first, I want to commend you for that, because again, like I said, a lot of people, if they make it out at all, they don't make it out that soon of a situation like that, where they feel like they're being manipulated or dealing with a narcissist or narcissistic behavior, for that matter. So first, just, kudos to you for making it out and not worrying about the stuff. You know what I mean? So many times we let the stuff hold us back because, okay, my things are here. I got to get this, or what about this? What about that? But we don't save ourselves, and we're stuck in something, or choose to be stuck in something because of things. So first, commend you on that. And then I also want to just say, what is the reason? What is one of the reasons you wanted to share this today? Even talk about this at all? It's a very private thing, and I feel like your whole world was turned upside down. What would make you want to share this part of it?
I want to share things that I go through, number one, because I don't ever want people to think I'm perfect or my life is perfect or I don't make mistakes. And I know that this is going to open me up to criticism. Oh, why'd you move in with this guy that you didn't know? And why this and why that? I can't answer that truthfully. You know what I mean? Like, I made what I thought was the best decision at that time. And I know a lot of women do stuff like that, and so I just want people to know that I'm human. I make mistakes, and I want people to know that if they've made the same mistake, that it's okay. Like, you can still bounce back. You can still learn a lesson from it. I know there's still going to be those people that are going to talk crap and, do whatever, the negativity is going to come. But I still just wanted people to just understand the whole story. There's been a lot of opinions. There's been a lot of assumptions. And then, of course, most people thought I was there and happy because I tried to present that in my TikToks. I didn't want to put out depressing TikToks. So I didn't do TikToks on days that I had been crying all day. I didn't put out TikToks about my situation. So I just want people to know the truth. And I just want people to hear my story and know that if they've gone through something similar, or more importantly, if they are currently going through something similar, that they can get out of it. Like, I made a mistake. I made a bad choice. And I own up to that. I'm not sitting here trying to be a victim. I'm absolutely not a victim. I'm just a woman who now needs help because I messed up. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not coming in like, oh my gosh, poor me, everybody come help me now because I did something stupid. And I know that's how a lot of people look at it, but I'm just saying, hey, you know what? I'm human and I made a mistake. At the time, I was doing what I thought would be good for myself and my children. Do you think moving in with a guy you don't know is good for yourself and your children? No, but that's not how it was presented to me. That's not how it looked to me. I felt very safe. The way that he spoke to me, the things that he offered me, I felt like I was going to be safe and taken care of, and that my children would be too. And those were things that were important to me. That's the verbiage that was used at the time to make me comfortable with the situation. And then when I got in the situation, it was something totally different. So I just want people to understand how that works, and know that I'm not here trying to be a victim or say, hey, pay for my mistakes for me. But I am saying, hey, I made a mistake. It wasn't my intention for it to happen the way that it did, or for me to end up in this situation. Obviously, I would never want to end up in this situation with my children, but I'm here now. And I got myself out because I wanted to be okay, and I wanted my kids to be okay. And now if anybody can find it in their heart to just help me get back on my feet, I would appreciate the help. If no one wants to help me, I completely get it and I completely understand. I am a 42-year-old woman. I should know better. But if you can show me a person that hasn't made a mistake when they should have known better, then I will commend that person. But everyone I know has done things that weren't the smartest idea. They could have made a better choice, and they did something that they regret. And that's just the position that I am in now. So that's pretty much all I can say about it.
No, and again, I'm completely floored at your transparency. I'm completely floored at the fact that you're even able to open up about this so quickly, and just be so transparent about a lot of these things. The reason I asked that question is because there's a lot of people who are going to see this and want to know, are you talking about them? And not specifically talking about them in a sense of talking to them, but is this me? Does this feel like my situation? Have I been put in a situation where I'm isolated now when I have my own everything, and now I'm in someone else's stuff because they can have better control over me or control my life a little bit more if I'm basically their possession? And so I wanted to make sure that people knew this video, this interview is intentional to make sure that people who are going through it understand what they're dealing with, and they can see some of the signs. Also, we all, like you said, we all make mistakes. We all go through crazy things, and we all just need help sometimes. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it takes a lot for a person to really openly admit, hey, I need help, and I know you to be a very prideful person so that this is a big deal for you. This is not something where, oh, every couple of months you do this. This is like, yo, your whole life was uprooted based on something that you thought was a better decision for yourself and your future, which a lot of people do fall victim to things of that nature, especially when it comes to love, relationships, and partnerships. So again, I want to also just again commend you for just really, really, really getting out of there. That's the first most important thing, is just getting out of there. Because that's probably the physically the hardest part, is leaving.
Yeah.
You know, and not just leaving and going down the street or going to a family member's house in the same city. You left the state, which again, more, even more commending to you, because most people don't have it in them to do. And so a big part of why I wanted to do this with you today is because those people who don't have it in them to do, I want them to look at what you did. I want them to look at what you did, not just leave and stay at a hotel for the night, not just leave and come back in the morning, not just leave and take a day off. You left and got as far away as possible.
Yeah.
And that is what you're supposed to do. That's what you need to do when you're dealing with stuff like this, because close is too close.
Right.
You know, within range is too close in this kind of situation, because you won't even have the time to process your thoughts before they come knocking at whoever's house you're at, or whatever hotel you're at, or whatever the case may be. We've seen these things play out so many different ways that I'm just really, really glad that you took it upon yourself to get yourself as far away as possible.
Yeah.
And worry about the rest later. And now that is where the good people of this world, the good people of all the people that we know, can say, you know what? I've been in a situation where I needed some help, and now I'm in a position to help. Let me help.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. But more importantly, it's about all the people who don't know what to call what they're experiencing right now. And this is what that may be. You may need to get out. You may need to leave. You may be dealing with a situation that if you don't leave, you will lose yourself. You know, the suicide rates have been on the increase, over the years abundantly, and they're not going down anytime soon, because the more chaos we have in the world and the more people we have that are willing to take advantage of someone emotionally, the more you have people who rather just not be here. So it's really, really, really helpful to hear someone who went through it and get out of it, talk about it, to provide the hope for other people.
Yeah.
So again, I'm really, really glad. So anyone who does want to help, can you tell them, what ways they can do that?
Yeah. My Cash App is actually $NIKNAK. That's $knickknack, NIKNAK. Or I have my GoFundMe. The links are in my bio of my TikTok as well as my Instagram. And the name for both of those is under The Real Boho Mofo. That's that's TheRealBohoMofo. So those are the best ways. I do also have Venmo. No, I have Zelle. I'm sorry. I have Zelle as well, if that works better. And I can provide that information on a requested basis, only because that's via my phone number. So if someone has Zelle and would rather send it Zelle, you can send me a direct message on either TikTok or Instagram, and I can provide my Zelle information. But I definitely have the GoFundMe there, and I definitely have Cash App, Apple Pay as well. But again, that's by request, because that requires my phone number as well. So I'm just basically, and I just want to put it out there, like, I'm not trying to make $1 off of my followers. Like, I never intended to ever have to ask my followers for anything. I just wanted to provide entertainment. And even on the way home, when I stopped at a hotel, there was a lady there, and I don't have money at this time because of the situation, but she was asking the cashier at the hotel to give her a room for $40 because that's all she had. And I may not have enough for what I need, but I had enough to help her. So in the middle of my crisis, I paid for her room as I'm getting me and my kids a room. And I just hope that there's more people like that in the world, because I've been getting a lot of offers to help for, like, in exchange for dates. And that's been pretty hurtful. I definitely wanted to mention that for anyone that hears this interview. Like, don't do that, please. Like, I'm in a really bad position right now, and all of the gentlemen that are offering to help me get my stuff and help, you know, in exchange for like dates or whatever. Like, please just don't do that right now. Please just don't. But basically, just to let everybody know what I am trying to do, I am trying to get housing again for myself and my children here in California. And I'm trying to get my belongings from Georgia to California. I have a small storage unit with all of my children's clothes and shoes, as well as my clothes and shoes. And that's mainly it. Like, there's no furniture or anything like that. And I just need to get those things here because me and my kids have nothing right now. We don't have any of our stuff. I just wanted to get us out of there in a safe place where there was not any verbal abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and it was, you know, escape the trauma of that situation. So
I can, and even if you go to my page on my social tab, the first link there is going to be a link to you can donate. You click that link and it takes you right to the GoFundMe. So if you follow me and not her, you know, definitely, you know, click on that link and do what you can. Spread the word, spread it out. You know that this isn't something that I do, and this, if you know her, this isn't something that she does either. So this is really from the heart. This is really taking a lot to do, you know, for her to do. And I commend you. I applaud you for even just being as vulnerable to receive the help that you may need right now. You know, we've grown to become friends over the past year since, you know, we met through social media and our interview. And, you know, I kind of in the shadows watched you go through this and try to offer, you know, whatever assistance I could and help and just be there. But sometimes we need more. You know, sometimes we need more, and sometimes we need as many of those good people pulling on the rope as possible to pull someone out of the situation. You know, if you're watching this, you know I'm all about motivation, inspiration, and just helping change the world. And this is a way that you can help change this person's world. You know, start with one person and do whatever you can. And that's what this has always been about for me. And now this is a real opportunity for everyone in my tribe to say, hey, you know what? Let's put this thing in action. Let's really actually help somebody. So I am, you know, imploring you to do so. If you have any questions that you want answered by me or by her, you know, feel free to reach out. But definitely, aside from that part of it, check on yourself, check on your friends, check on the people who you know may have made a move similar to this. Check on them, see how they're doing, because they may not be okay right now. If you're not okay right now, you know, we want to make sure that you know all the things that are available to you, and just all of the ways that you can make sure that it's not just something that, you know, you're going to go through and that's it. You know, this is not how life has to be for anyone. So and if you are in that space right now where you're feeling like, hey, you know what, I want to give up, or like she said she was, you know, she'd rather not wake up. You know, there is a prevention hotline, there's Lifeline. The suicide prevention line is 800-273-8255. And not saying that you're there, but if this is you, it's not for everyone, but if this is you, call that number, send a message to me, you know, whatever you need to do. And I'm not a licensed therapist, so I can't diagnose anyone or give any professional information, but I can definitely walk you hand in hand to where you need to be and get the advice or help that you need. So please, please, please do not feel like you're in this alone. And please don't be afraid to tell your story, because that may be the freedom that you need.
Yeah.
So before we end this, I do want to know, if you have any questions or anything else that you want to share with anyone listening, or any advice you have for anyone that's listening right now.
Not really. I mean, everything has already pretty much been said. I just wanted to basically offer my followers that story time that they were asking for, and answer the questions that I know are the main ones that people have, because there are a lot of people that are invested in my story and my life. Like they even have commented like, hey, I'm invested in your story. Where's the story time, sis? And I'm like, it's coming, so that's pretty much all I wanted to do. I hope that this is understood by most people. I hope that you guys can forgive me, because I'm trying to still forgive myself for the decisions that I've made and the position that I put myself and my children in, amongst other people in my family and in my life who I hurt. There are other people that I hurt by this decision that I had no intention of hurting. So I just want to forgive myself. I want other people to forgive me. And if you're out there doing the same thing that I did, take the opportunity to fix it, because you can, and I'm trying to fix this now. So hopefully I can get the support of the people who love and care for me, or, understand my story, my position, and, less judgment as possible, because I already feel terrible. So
I definitely hear you on that. And, that's amazing. So to really just put this in perspective, just if you have to give, please do. If you need this message for yourself, take this as your gift. Take this as your gift. Take this as learning from someone else's experience, that what you're going through, it can have an ending. It may not be the superhero ending that you may have thought you could have, but it saves your life. And that's the focus. That's the first thing to be concerned about, is how can I save my life? Once you save it, then rebuild it. But you can't rebuild something you don't have. So love yourself enough to understand that you made a mistake, and that doesn't have to be what your life is consistent upon going forward. You're not stuck. You're not stuck. And as long as you make up your mind that you can leave, you're not stuck. Take it from someone who has eyes of thousands and thousands of people on them right now, living this right in front of you. Your story may not be as public as this. So you have an opportunity to take someone else's experience and learn from it. And this is what this is all about. So again, I thank you for watching. I thank you for sharing your story, and do what you can. But if you're in my tribe, I already know what you're doing. If you haven't done it already, please, 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 let's make the world better. And today we have an opportunity to make someone else's world better directly. So thank you for checking it out. Thank you for tuning in today. This is a very special episode of this, the Thinking Aloud podcast. And thank you for being so vulnerable and transparent today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Everyone, as always, be dope and be great. Peace.